Good morning, and happy Sunday to everyone. Listen, I want to welcome you all to another Sunday Conversations. We're going to get right into it. Let me bring out these two awesome people that will be doing or conducting our Sunday Conversations this morning. Let's welcome Corey and Morgan Johnson. I wish I had like some applause music or something like that, but I want to welcome you all to the broadcast. Corey and Morgan, just greet the people, and then of course, just share a little bit about yourselves with them before I introduce you all.
Hey everybody, we're excited to be here this morning for what I think will be a good conversation.
Yeah, we're excited. David, we thank you for inviting us to talk this morning and to just hang out. And so, we hope people are tuning in and get in on the conversation, man.
Awesome. And of course, we have little Corey in the background. She's going to be providing the background vocals for us. And it's cool. Everybody that has a child your age has been where you are and know that she's in charge. But really quick, let me just introduce you all to Morgan and Corey. Morgan and Corey met in 2011 on Facebook. They were friends for 5 years and began dating in 2016. They got married on August 5, 2018. Now, Morgan has her master's from Johns Hopkins and is a licensed professional counselor, and Corey received his master's in divinity from Andrews University and serves as the pastor of the Mount Sinai Church in Trenton, New Jersey. Great people there at Mount Sinai. In May of 2019, they welcomed their beautiful daughter, Miss Corey Lynn Johnson. So we're gonna do what we'll do real quick is we'll take a little short break, and we'll come back and we'll get right into our discussion with Pastor Corey and Morgan Johnson. We'll be right back.
The Relationship Ministries Department of the Allegheny East Conference is a family of ministries that seeks to engage, enrich, and empower families, men, singles, couples, and parents to have healthy and whole relationships. To access the many resources we have available to you, your church, or your family, visit us on the web at www.visitaec.org/relationshipmin.
All right. So let's jump right into it. And if you're joining us, just let us know in the comment box where you're from, where you're watching from. And if you have any questions throughout our broadcast for Corey and Morgan, it don't matter how personal they are, get all up in their business. Don't even worry about it. They promised us they'll answer anything anybody asks. They didn't promise us that, but we'll give it a shot. So if you have questions, just put them in the comment box and we'll get to them. So really quickly, guys, just tell us a little something about yourselves that you think people may not know that wasn't in the introduction.
This is good. Well, I think we're good friends. We've always been good friends, right? We love television. We like to binge. We like to binge television shows. We love HGTV. That is our favorite channel. We haven't gotten really into. We tried to do the Lifetime movie thing that didn't really take off. But we are at HGTV. Love it or list it. House Hunters. That's us. So we're really quite boring actually. But that's what we.
Don't worry, you're not alone. In the office, the only thing we put on the TV is HDTV because that's the only thing no one can complain about. The women don't like sports. The men don't want HGTV.
That's it.
So that's good.
So
all right.
You said the women don't like sports.
No, they don't like.
I'm a big football fan. Auburn Tigers. They embarrassed me yesterday. But that's, I guess, another thing about us is we're a very big football home.
Yeah.
my Steelers beat his Eagles last week.
You mean the Pigeons? I got you. Yeah.
See, here you go.
Yeah. No. Yeah, the Pigeons. Yeah. As a Patriot fan, we don't like the Eagles very much. But anyway, that's not what we're here. We're not here to talk about that. So don't bring up old stuff.
Right now, we're trying. Yeah, I know you caught that early, but right now we're trying to decide, how we are going to pick Corey's side, and so I'm a little ahead on this. She does like the little fly flapping of the wings thing. So I'm trying to indoctrinate her early.
I got you. To go out there, teach her to throw interceptions and drop balls too. Then while you're at it. All right. So to give us an idea, talk to us about how you all first met. Talk to us about that story.
So let's see, 2011. Corey and his family were visiting my dad's church, and he saw me and decided that he was going to figure out how to have a conversation with me. And so in 2011, the best way to do that was Facebook. And so he added me as a Facebook friend, and then sent me a message like when I accepted the friend request, and was like, yeah, I saw you at church. So I was like, okay, hey. But from there, we really just developed a friendship. To be completely honest, at the time, Corey was always honest about, being in ministry or, that being his passion. And in 2011, I had no desire to date or talk to anybody in ministry. And so that kind of helped him to be a better friend than anything else. I won't say I put him in a friend zone, but it definitely helped us to solidify that friendship. But so he messaged me on Facebook. We started talking as friends, just sharing life experiences. And next thing we know, it had been years going by, and, couldn't get rid of him.
She's 100% right. That story is accurate. It was 20. First of all, I'm just gonna say this: don't be afraid to slide in DMs. Come on, somebody. It's all right. It is all right. Listen, you miss every shot you don't take, and or you don't. You miss every shot. You miss every shot you don't take. So, and it was really just reaching out. I thought she was pretty. And so I reached out to her to get to know her, and it turned out that we differ on how it became a friend situation. Somebody friend zoned somebody, and
we have actual proof that he called me his sister.
I did early on.
It was like September, October of that year. So yeah.
So that did happen, but we were just friends. We were just cool. And we were that way for a solid 5 years.
Okay, awesome. So really quickly, right? Let me know, talk to us about some of the biggest blessings that you've seen in your marriage, or tell us about a time in your marriage that you don't think you would have made it through without each other.
COVID.
Yeah. It's funny. I think strangely, we've talked about this. COVID answers both of those questions, David. Mm-hmm. COVID was, I think, the biggest, and I'm not saying it was designed, it was ordained by God, or but it has been the biggest blessing in our marriage, because it allowed us to stop and not be so busy and really work and process through things that may have been thrown on the back burner, or things that we would not talk about, or just things we wouldn't learn about each other if it weren't for, listen, first couple of months, y'all in the house, y'all ain't going nowhere. And kind of having to face things. You get it. When you're busy, when you're both working, traveling, literally on the go, it's really hard to really just have the time to talk and uninterrupted. And what COVID has been, it's been a season of we've been uninterrupted. So I think, yeah, that definitely has been a blessing. And also, I couldn't imagine going through, for me, I couldn't imagine being in quarantine with somebody I just didn't like. You know what I'm so I needed to go through this with her. Because the walls get small when you're in the house with somebody you can't stand. And I happen to like you. So, and this confirmed that. No, really, this confirmed that we vibe and that we belong together, man.
Yeah. And the thing is, a lot of couples are experiencing a lot of problems being in the house with someone they don't necessarily get along with. Like, I have a divorce attorney friend that says she's overrun with just like people. How do I get divorced in COVID? How do I get divorced over Zoom? All these kind of things, courthouse shutdown, stuff like that. So it's beneficial to be with someone that you like. But how do you think, share with someone who may be going through a difficult time during this COVID season with their spouse as to how they can sort of underpin their relationship or grow their relationship in this time of COVID?
I would say remember your foundation. So I guess a little more about us. We were in a long distance dating relationship when we transitioned from friends to dating. And I guess in our situation, it really was more of a courtship. We can talk about that later. But when we transitioned, Corey was at the seminary at Andrews, and I was living in Maryland. And so for extended periods of time, all we had was conversation. Literally, we would talk all day, all night, texting while I'm at work or, on FaceTime whenever we got the chance to. And so I think with that being the foundation of our relationship and of course our friendship, when life got hectic, I think sometimes for us, we weren't as intentional about the foundation of good conversation and friendship. And so again, being stuck in the house for us gave us time to talk again.
Yeah.
And really get back to the things that were what I guess helped us learn each other and grow as a couple to begin with. So I would just encourage people to remember that foundation.
Yeah. Because it's almost like it is so easy when you're with someone, even if you're only married for a year or 2 years, it's so easy to kind of just rest on we know each other and to kind of just go through the motions and kind of like just really not see each other. And like you literally see each other, but you're just not paying attention. You're not the same level of intentionality, and stuff does that. Time, kids, jobs, careers, attrition, right? And so I think kind of remembering what was the basis of our friendship and the basis of our relationship, like you said, was built on communication. And so I think that was the one thing that we were able to in this season kind of say, okay, let's intentionally turn back to that, to talking, and that's been a blessing and a benefit.
Awesome. All right. So we'll get into that conversation a little bit more later on as we talk about practical tools that people could utilize to sort of strengthen their relationships or grow even their friendships. But talk to us about some of the things about your relationship that makes it unique. Like, talk to us about the uniqueness of your relationship that you all think sets you all apart or make you all different.
Make us different as a couple, or make us different like our individual differences?
As a couple.
Well, as a couple and individual differences.
I don't know. I would say I don't know how many couples were legitimate platonic friends before getting married, and I mean for an extended period of time. Morgan and I, we saw each other up close and personal through relationships with different people that lasted for an extended period of time. I dated other people, she dated other people, and we were not, friends with ulterior motives or friends with benefits, you know what I'm saying? Or friends with, we friends, but we're kind of friends. No, it wasn't that. And so I think that in our story, that has made it unique. I think that Yeah, I don't know if a couple has been friends for that extended period of time and legitimately platonic friendship and end up dating and married. I think that is a rather unique story, I think.
Yeah. I think people like to say like, I married my best friend is like the go-to, Instagram caption and all of that stuff. But I can say I legitimately like married my best friend. Like, there are things like I would say, while we were younger and dating and stuff, like if I didn't understand what was going on in the male brain, I would call Corey and be like, what's wrong with your gender? Like, like we legitimately were, and still are, not were, but in that season, we legitimately were friends. Like,
yeah,
there was, I mean, he called me a sister, so. So
exactly. So yeah.
So the next question that comes out of this is, how was that transition made?
Wow.
How'd you go to marrying your sister, Corey? Tell us.
I was gonna make a joke that would anger people in some states in the country, but I did go to college in Alabama. I'm joking. We both did. But I would say, I think it was transitioning into post-college, post-grad school adulthood. And for me, I think it was learning and truly processing what I wanted my life to look like. And there was a shift between 2015 and 2016 for me when I really began to think through what are my values, where do I see my future, and intentionally thinking about those things made it clear that in conversations over time with Morgan during that season, our values align, and we noticed that. And the more we talk, we notice, okay, we kind of see life the same, and we, to some degree, want the same things, and we want the same for each other. But we want this. I want what I want for my life mirrors what you talk about, and what you want for your life mirrors what I talk about. And so, I think that is how the transition happened. I always say the reason I got with Morgan was because we shared values. And I think that was the most important thing that we could understand about ourselves, and that any couple could understand, is you got to know, and at the core, do you share vision? Do you share values? I think that's how it transitioned, honestly.
Awesome. Okay. All right. So real quick, as we transition to this, right? How do you all handle conflict, and like, how do you handle conflict, work-life balances, and then are there some examples that you all are willing to share as it relates to conflict management? Because we know that's what a lot of couples deal with at this time, is managing conflict.
Yeah.
I think, well, I'll answer the example question first, and then I think the biggest way that has helped us in managing conflict is pretty much our entire marriage. Like 2 months in, we are still in counseling. We go once a month, and we have literally seen her every month of our marriage since like 2 months in. And it was actually at the suggestion of a friend after we found out that I was pregnant, and after we found out that Corey was on the way, my friend was like, it was helpful in her marriage. She was like, you guys should get back into seeing your therapist, just the transition and all of that stuff. And so I do think, I think in my head, when we first started going back, it was just going to be for the pregnancy, and then we would live our life and do whatever. But we've seen her even virtually now over quarantine, just for check-ins. Some months there's absolutely nothing to talk about, and other months there are. But we at least know at the end of the month we have that opportunity to, check in talk about whatever's going on. So I think that's been the biggest help in managing conflict, I would say.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, to be transparent, I think early on, the biggest transition for us, Dave, was it was adjusting to the level of impact and actions, the level of impact, the level of actions and words, that how much of an impact it has on each other when you shift from dating to marriage. Like, I think we had to adjust to, whoa, as my wife, now when you say some things, I feel it. Like, now your words matter more than any other person's word in the world. And I'm like, dang, we're not just friends and we're not just boyfriend and girlfriend. There was a different weight to how we interacted. I think that was an adjustment early that we had to learn. But I think the hardest thing for dealing with conflict for us has always been, we are both non-confrontational, especially as it relates to each other. And so even broaching, and this is what counseling and therapy helped us with, was broaching, okay, I need my needs met in this way, or I didn't like this, and I didn't know how to say it because we're friends and because we like each other, because we love each other, we don't want to hurt each other, but there were needs. And I think learning how to not run from conflict, I guess, and not be so conflict averse, that we were, maybe not everything was not clicking as it could have been. And so I think for us, just learning that it's okay to voice needs in an effective way, was the biggest way that we've learned how to handle conflict. And that was learning.
Yeah, sure. So help us as you talk about needs, right? And I'm asking you all this because you all are so adjusted. You have a background in your friendship, and then of course with Morgan's background in as a clinician. What are some of the ways that you think couples can go about getting their needs met more effectively? Like, so we know that with sometimes with us guys, if we don't get certain needs met, we start pouting or we start acting out. And with women, it could be different. Like, how do you suggest couples go about getting their unique needs met, or at least expressing or enunciating their needs to each other?
Wow, that's a great question. I think, and it's going to sound weird, like, say it. And to me, I think a good process has been saying it when things are going well. So like sometimes there's this tendency, like for me, I know I hold stuff in. And so I'll hold it in and kind of just process, disregard it, it's not that deep, not the right time. I don't want to bring this up now. And I'll hold it in, and then at the worst possible time, it'll come out. And I think learning that it's okay to express needs as a part of the normal process of your marriage is extremely important. So we kind of will say, yo, if we're having dinner, whether it's in the house and Corey's to bed, and we'll just sit at the table and say, how are you doing? Is there anything you need of me or anything I need of you? I think it's better to say that when things are good, as opposed to saying it when you are so frustrated and so empty that it comes out with unintended consequences.
Gotcha.
I agree.
Yeah, she's dealing with a little one right now.
Yeah. She's busy. All right. So yeah, that's I think that's very important, Corey, is knowing the timing of when to express something that's going on, or when to express I have a need that's not being met. When we're arguing and angry, it's not probably the time to say, you know what, well, I have a need for more affection. You communicate that when things are cool and copacetic. And so for some couples, they think that expressing those needs when things are calm is actually not a good thing, because they think that it will give rise to conflict. So how would you suggest people work around that misnomer that if I bring up problems, then I ain't going to have peace at this moment? I put you on the spot, didn't I?
So coming from the background over here, I would say that comes with building trust. I think, and this is a conversation that we've had actually over quarantine. I think there's this idea that once you're married or once you hit certain levels in a relationship, trust is an assumption. And, you think, so I'll say for us, we're kind of like, yeah, we're married, we've been friends all this time, like we trust each other. But one of the things that we learned is kind of like, trust evolves. And so there is a level of trust for your friend or for your boyfriend or for your fiance. But then as life happens and different circumstances arise, sometimes the level of trust that you have in that instance may not be the level of trust that you realize you need for the circumstance. And so I think allowing grace and trust to grow kind of helps with the confidence, I would say, to have certain difficult conversations. I think, and I'm saying this even as a clinician, it's easy to say sometimes, oh, just talk to your partner, like communication is key. And, that sounds great until you actually have to have the conversation and you have no idea how they'll respond. Or you think and then you're met with a response that you weren't prepared for. So I think allowing for trust to continue to grow and allowing the relationship to evolve is something that I think I would say for us has been a huge help. And also just kind of not holding your partner to one season. So sometimes I think we'll take a response or, something that was expressed and be like, well, you said, and then you're holding on to it for the next 15 years. And it's kind of like, no, like I'm allowed to change my mind. I'm allowed to grow. New information provides new insight, and so letting those things grow and evolve and not keeping us at, 3 weeks married, no kids mindset, yeah.
Can I add to that a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Also, just allowing for your marriage to evolve, and I think so it's easy, especially for young couples, to kind of say if it is not this ideal, we finishing each other's sentences. I mean, it's just always on and popping. We're always kind of clicking at 100%. That's what this is supposed to be this early on. I think that level of expectation can sometimes be unhealthy because, as we all know, when you're adjusting to living with someone, when you're adjusting to having to adjust to their changes and their evolutions and their failures and their fears and all of that, it is a process. I think sometimes the whole, and we talk about this, and we have to really accept this. I think the whole honeymoon phase is so unrealistic in how we tell people about marriage. Marriage is the beginning is the worst it should be. Nobody starts anything at, oh, we're at 100%, and then 10 years down you'll be at 90, and then 10 years you'll be at 70. No, it should be evolving. It should be getting better. And I think that for a lot of couples struggle with conflict, suffer in silence, are afraid to go to counseling because they're like, we are supposed to be at our honeymoon phase, but this first year is rough, or this we're struggling, we're arguing, we're not supposed to be doing this, and it's like, what do you mean? Y'all don't know each other. You dated, but it's supposed to evolve from here. It's supposed to be, and it's supposed to appreciate and value, not depreciate. And so I think we kind of get that mixed up. And so I would tell, we're back 2 years, I would tell younger couples, give your relationship grace. It's okay to not have it all together. You shouldn't. You should be getting better. You should be evolving. You should be growing, learning more about each other. So that's something that I think we had to just really accept, is that, we didn't have to live up to the brand or the image or being this amazing love story who never argues and we're just best friends, and then just looked each other eyes and said, I want you, you want me. And I think that allowed us to say, okay, we're building this thing from scratch and we're being the best that Corey and Morgan can be, because we didn't know we would have a child within that first year. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's an adjustment.
Well, you know how it happened. So,
yeah.
You did it. So.
You're right. I mean, you're right.
But so this is the important thing, right? A lot of times when you ask people these questions, they give you what I call t-shirt advice or fortune cookie advice. And what you all are saying is absolutely real, that I think people need to hear. Like, adjustments in marriage are very difficult. You're moving from, we even have seen people experience grief in their first state, in their first aspects of marriage. You're grieving your singlehood. You're grieving your autonomy, where now you have to check in with someone before you go somewhere. That's grief, and oftentimes those grief symptoms present themselves with conflict, with questioning. Why did I do this, or is this the right person? And so, what you said, giving yourself grace in those because them first couple of years could be rough, man. It could be rough, but it gets better.
That was actually one of the things that our counselor said to us in one of our early sessions. Is she was like, allow yourself to grieve what you thought this would be. And so, again, we got pregnant very early in our marriage. And so even for us, what we thought the first year was going to be, what we thought, Corey and I like to travel. So we're like, oh, we're going here, we're going there. Next summer, we're doing this. Our first anniversary trip, we're planning to leave the country and all this stuff. And then here we are. And so in addition to grieving transitions, we're also grieving, a different type of first year. And really, I hate the word normalize, but here I am using it, like normalizing that grief. And it's okay. And it doesn't mean, for us, it didn't mean like we didn't love our child or we weren't happy to be pregnant or anything. It was just that the transition is real.
Yeah.
And so, that's necessary for sure.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit about intimacy, right? How do you all keep and maintain sort of an intimate relationship, even with your new she's not a new baby anymore. She's like 18 months, ain't she? Yeah. Like, so how do you all maintain sort of intimacy and making sure that you all maintain connection? And then share some advice with individuals who are in this same stage in their marriage that you all are in, or in their same stage of relationships, as to how they can maintain intimacy, closeness, connection.
Bedtime.
You say what?
That Corey is in bed at 7:30. No,
he's not.
Yes, she is.
Corey. I thought you meant that Corey. I was like, nah, I'll be texting him later than that.
No. Bedtime, man.
So you need to explain that to people.
Put her to bed. We have a bedtime routine. 6:30 is dinner. 6 o'clock is dinner time. 6:30 is bath time. 7 o'clock, one of us are in the room rocking her to sleep. And it was a process that we had to start early. And we have to be intentional about it. And I think, and she said bedtime, but she's absolutely right. Like that's a savior. Like we see kids like up at like 11 o'clock. I'm like, I don't know how y'all do it, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? But I think the key word is intentionality, right? I think one of the shifts is, how do I put this? I think one of the shifts is being intentional about making time for intentional, intimate connections, whether that is planned conversations, planned dates, planned times to have sex. Like, yo, we're gonna do it this night. We're gonna make our schedule towards this. And I think it can be robotic at first. And it can be like awkward, like, wait, no, when we were, whatever, this was easy. Or when before we had children, this was like, but it changes. And so I think intentionality is key when it comes to maintaining intimacy.
Gotcha. Okay. Anything else?
Maureen?
I would say talk about it as well. So I know I'm being very stereotypical therapist right now, like pushing communication. But
okay.
But I mean, to be honest, I think there's this idea that everything is supposed to just flow and it's always easy and it's always just like, I look at you and you know what the look means. And, I think especially in a marriage, especially in this season, having conversations about like, what do you need? What does it take to, especially we're chasing around a almost 2-year-old. And so like being honest about like, after having, running around with a 2-year-old all day, like
especially in a pandemic,
like what's even going to make me feel sexy? What is it that is going to transition? So for me, I am doing telehealth right now. And, so mom therapist is my life. How do I, after a long day of sessions and then spending a little bit of time with Corey before she goes to bed and then turning all of that off and then being like, all right, now it's us, but having the conversation of telling him like, what did I need to transition from listening to carrying people's burdens all day, spending time with my daughter, and then now I'm like, all right, here we go. So I would say for sure, talking about it is important, because that, again, expressing need and understanding like what we're bringing to any given moment.
It's so interesting. And I mean, can we just stay here a little bit, Dave? Because like,
yeah. Tell me more about that. Tell me more.
Well, I think it's so interesting how, especially in Christian marriages, we struggle with talking about sex, even as grown adult married people. And I think that talking about sex before marriage or can even impact our ability to talk and communicate honestly about sex in marriage. So you may have couples who are struggling saying, this is what gets me in the mood. This is what I like. This is what I need done. This is what I want done. Because even talking about sex can be something that feels taboo, as how we create it in our culture. And I think in marriage, you should be able to talk about sex or intimacy. I mean, I just use regular words. I just use sex from before, during, and after. And I think so. It may say, hey, you know what? Like Morgan said, after children, after being a therapist all day and dealing with people and then being a mom, there has to be some sort of transition. And for me, it was learning, okay, you know what? If all of Corey's toys are out, it's a struggle for me. Like, I got to put toys away. I got to kind of erase, when she goes to bed, all evidence that she was out and about. Like, the toys got to go away. Everything needs to be, because there has to be a transition. And that became a conversation. So I think it would behoove all couples, all married couples, to talk about sex as much as possible. Talk about it. And yes, even plan for it. I don't think there's anything wrong for saying, hey, tonight we want to make this a special night, or yo, next week, or and next week, right? Or like, yo,
what are you doing next Thursday?
What are you doing next? Because I'm
it happens. It happens. Yo,
right.
It happens.
Between then, we can. But I also would say, like, I think planning and intentionality is okay, because life is happening. There are transitions. People have jobs. People are working from home, and then turning off the computer after work, and then trying to be an intimate couple. And so I think planning is fine. I think making it a date night is fine. Making things special is fine. But be intentional.
Yeah. And so I know that some people think the planning of sex takes sort of the romance out of it. You can play. It doesn't remove the romance out of it. You can still have the romance. You just say, So in my house, we just say, "Can I make an appointment?" And we know what that means. Find some place for Dana to go. And goodbye.
Builds anticipation, right? And I think just in general, so much of our relationships are just hoping that things just happen, right? From intimacy to conflict resolution to all of this, kind of like this, well, we're in love and everything will just happen. I think we're learning that there is beauty in intentionality and there's value in making it work.
Yeah.
And making it work.
So I have one last question for you all, but before I take this one last question, or I ask this one last question, if you're online and you have any questions whatsoever for Corey and Morgan, just put it in the chat. We're going to get to questions in a quick second. But this last question that I have for you all, share anything that you all can with people who maybe are in the dating phase of their relationship. They're thinking about getting married. They're contemplating marriage. What advice would you give to someone, even if they're not contemplating marriage, if they're just dating and dating multiple people, whatever area that they are in their dating life? What advice would you give to people who are engaged in interpersonal relationships that you all have gained from your experience?
I would say invest as much time into really getting to know yourself and understanding yourself as you are investing into whatever interpersonal relationship you are interested in or contemplating or, thinking about engaging in. I think being married or being in an intimate relationship, but being married for sure, is so much of a, mirror of yourself. I think it's important then to kind of have a baseline understanding of knowing who you are before someone else is reflecting something back to you. And even just knowing what you need, kind of knowing your quirks, knowing what's important to you, kind of like what Corey mentioned earlier about core values, so that you understand what you're bringing to the relationship. I think for a lot of people, I have noticed people will get into a relationship and then try to figure themselves out. And that's not helpful for your partner. That's also not helpful for yourself. So I would say, really make sure you know who you are, or invest in getting to know who you are.
Yeah. Anything to share with that one, Corey?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think enjoying liberty, enjoying freedom, and enjoying only being responsible for yourself is an invaluable experience if you do it right. And allowing, because there is a shift, there is an adjustment to thinking for two people and thinking about two people and being responsible to some degree to another person and for another person. And I think so as if you are, I think sometimes there is a rush to get married that exists, particularly in Christian communities, especially with younger people. There's a rush to get married, and I think a part of it is just fear of breaking sexual ethics or fornication or falling. But I think there is a value in investing in a fruitful single experience and in an enriching adult on your own experience. I think that it's invaluable, and I think that we should talk more about that and push for that more.
Awesome. Okay. Well, really, I want to thank you all for that. We're going to take a real quick commercial break. And then for anyone who has questions, just submit your questions in the comment box, and we will be right back with Corey and Morgan Johnson.
The Relationship Ministries Department of the Allegheny East Conference is a family of ministries that seeks to engage, enrich, and empower families, men, singles, couples, and parents to have healthy and whole relationships. To access the many resources we have available to you, your church, or your family, visit us on the web at www.visitaec.org/relationshipmin.
All right. Let's see if we got some good questions in here, and then of course I have one more for you. Looking at where your marriage started to where you are now, what are some differences that you think you see in your marriage from where you started to where you are now?
Good question. You got something?
I think we're more intentional. Yeah, period. Like with our time, with everything, honestly.
Yeah.
We had a whirlwind first year.
Yeah.
And a lot of like first year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the first half, I would say, of our marriage so far has kind of been very reactive. You know, I was pregnant, we had a new baby, we moved to a new church. Like there was so many different things. It was kind of like, okay, this is the next transition to prepare for. Here we go. Let's attack it. Let's get it done. So I think the lesson in those transitions has been intentionality, and not just kind of waiting on our heels for the next the next thing to pop up. Yeah. We're a lot more not planning, but
intentional.
Yeah,
that's real. Like, yeah, I think that's definitely a case. I think also we are more vocal, both with frustrations and with needs. We're a lot more vocal about that, and I think it has made our relationship actually better, because I think that we're able to express needs in a healthy way, but also not so afraid that we don't broach things. I mean, our counselor was like, "Yo, y'all gotta talk," and she would say that. She was like, "Morgan, you're conflict averse, Corey, you're conflict averse. That ain't gonna work. Y'all gotta talk." And I think so now. We are more just open, and I think that has made our relationship just really grow. Is being willing to communicate in direct ways.
So I've heard you all talk about counseling a few times. Help someone who, one, is apprehensive about going to marriage counseling, and then two, help someone find out, how do I go about getting or procuring a marriage counselor?
I'm trying to think.
I think there's this idea that getting help for anything is a bad thing, or it means that something is wrong, right? And I think that's something that we bring into our culture a lot, about just going to the doctor when nothing's wrong or getting checkups. I think for us, kind of keeping a standing monthly appointment has allowed for us to not turn therapy into emergency surgery, but allow it just to be a monthly checkup. I think for a lot of times the stigma around counseling and therapy is that we treat it as something is wrong, something needs to be fixed, instead of something needs to be maintained, or we might need a tune-up, or we might need a new pair of eyes or ears. And I think it's always good to have a fresh pair of eyes or ears that's not your boys or your girls or your parents, right? Because a lot of times you can practice counseling with the very wrong people, and that's complaining about your spouse to your girlfriend, or complaining about your spouse to your brother. No, that's not it. I think having a standing appointment has been helpful for us. And like Morgan said, there are some weeks where there's nothing to talk about. And it's not that nothing's wrong. It's just like, we ain't got nothing to talk about. And then there's some weeks where it's like, oh, we do got Doc so-and-so. All right. Well, and then it go. Or there's some weeks where I know there were some sessions where I didn't plan to talk about anything. Mm-hmm. But when we sat there, it was like, okay, I do want to say this though. And it was a healthy space. So definitely see it as a part of your, I'll say it like this, and I'm sticking along. See it as a part of your marriage process. Yeah. Not something you turn to for an emergency. I think that's been the biggest blessing.
And I think kind of coming from that, it's helpful. So we started seeing our counselor. Actually, she did our premarital counseling. Mm-hmm. And so after we got married, we just called her back and was like, hey, can we come in for, a checkup? But I think the fact that for us, she has seen us through now multiple seasons of our relationship and marriage. Yeah. It also kind of helps. I would say it helps me trust where she's coming from, because she knows
she has the full
story. And she kind of, over now almost 3 years, has an understanding of us.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would say to encourage people to get counseling, because if you go just because it's Tuesday and you're not putting your therapist in a position of emergency support, it really helps you in the long run, because you're able to have someone that understands your needs as a healthy individual at the times when you may not be the healthiest.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say it's helpful if or when a problem does arise, because you kind of already have that baseline of, okay, I know how to get you guys back to where you need to be.
Yeah.
And that's very important, because I think a lot of times couples, they go to counseling for triage. They're in emergency. They're in crisis. They're about to get divorced. And then when they're not in crisis anymore, they're like, oh, well, counseling is over. I don't need to go to counseling. No, that's when you build. That's when you develop skills. That's when you learn how to to build guardrails around your marriage. And so it's important for us to promote healthy clinical engagement for marriage, or even for individuals that need it. If you have access to the resources, by all means, then utilize them.
Yeah.
All right. I've held you all long enough, so I don't want to hold you all any longer on this Sunday morning. But if you all could give us just one thing that you would want us to take away from this conversation, like if there was one thing that you would want to admonish couples with to leave this conversation, what would it be?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I would say embrace who you are as a couple. I think with social media, with just the age that we're in, especially during quarantine where everything is digital, there can be this pressure to compare your relationship or your marriage to what you see other relationships or marriages appear to be. And I would encourage couples to just really lean into being the best version of yourselves that you can be, and embrace that, and not try to force yourself, your partner, or your marriage to be something that it isn't.
Yeah. I would say, basically remember why you chose them. And I think that over time and over transitions, you could be like, what, wait, how do we, wait, no. Remember that at your core, you love each other, and hopefully that you share the same values. For me, I knew that the vision for my life and the values that I hold dear for my life, Morgan aligned with. And so whatever transition we go through, whatever changes happen, whatever season that we are in, being reminded of the vision, being reminded of the shared values, is just an encouragement. And as Morgan said, even through comparison to other couples or worried about, remember your core, remember your foundation.
Yeah. Listen, I want to thank you all. This was a very rich conversation. Listen, both of you all are brilliant, man. God got something impactful for both of you all. You like power couple, man. Like you all are awesome, and I want to thank you all for that. And I think someone even alluded to, Morgan, your ability to work with Corey while you're conducting this interview and not skipping a beat, man. That's great. That was awesome. But I want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for coming on. And I just want to share with our audience just some things that are coming up in way of the Relationship Ministries Department. On next Saturday, we're having this very impactful conversation on Black family trauma. What is the linkage between historical racialized trauma and its impact on our present pain? So we'll be talking about that on next Saturday. We have some very good panelists coming to talk about that. On next Sunday at 6 p.m., we're also going to continue our family and finances series on this same station. And so just make sure you tune in 6 o'clock. We're going to talk about how it is we can secure our families in this time of COVID-19. And then lastly, we are coming with another episode of Sunday Conversations, episode 7. We have India and Anthony Medley, the senior pastor and first lady of the Emmanuel Brinklow Church, will be with us on November 1 at 11 o'clock in the morning. So I just want to let you all know that. I want to just one more time thank Corey and Morgan for coming. I want to thank those of you who have come on to watch. And we hope that you have a wonderful and blessed Sunday morning. Have a wonderful